Dr. Rena here. I'm a dental specialist and founder of RW Perio, located at 75 Harley Street. Welcome to my podcast, Life and Smile, where we talk about everything dental, lifestyle, business, and much more. Every episode, I'm joined in conversation with a specialist expert in their chosen field, who give us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into their daily regime, career turning points, and an insider look at what they can't live without. As a businesswoman myself, it's so inspiring to hear how people have built their careers and shattered those glass ceilings. So let's get the conversation going. Dr. Rena here, welcoming you back for another inspiring episode of our 6th season of the Life and Smile podcast, recorded here at Harley Street in our recording studio. Joining me today is Sophie Goodwin, and I can't wait to get this conversation going. As an industry great, Sophie has held the title of Fashion Director at the Times Luxury and Tatler and is an expert when it comes to all things style and design. You will, of course, know Sophie as the co-founder of the agency Tiger's Eye and as a special advisor to the director at the British Museum. Sophie is also Creative Editorial Director for the interior and decorative arts title Cabana Magazine. Sophie, an official welcome to Life and Smile podcast. We have so much to talk about.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Amazing. So let's start off from the sort of early days in your career. How did it all start off? How did it all lead to where you are today?
I'd love to say there was sort of a grand plan, but there never really was one. It was more by accident rather than design. I actually did a degree in Russian history and graduated and was a little bit lost and didn't really know what to do with my life. And my elder sister called me and she said, you've really got to get a job. And I said, you're right. And she said, there's some work experience at ES Magazine, but I thought she said Yes Magazine. So I was thrilled to be going to work at Yes Magazine, which transpired to be the Evening Standard magazine. And I remember I was wearing it was prom skirt and white stilettos and a boob tube. And I started with a 2-week work experience placement and ended up staying for sort of 7 years, basically. Wow. And it was very instinctive for me. I think I've always been ruled by how I feel about a situation rather than knowing what the end result's going to be. And as soon as I walked into the room, it was the sort of a very small room actually at that time. It was just off from the Daily Mail and the Standard. And as soon as I walked in, the whole room sort of made sense to me. And I had this feeling that I've had quite rarely in my life actually, when I knew this was the start of something.
Amazing. And then that led to further things in your career thereafter.
Exactly.
So you're just sort of, I really like that. So you're just kind of focusing on the current situation and is that the right thing? And then that leading to the next thing, essentially. Exactly.
So I think there's a lot to be said for just putting yourself in positions without hope or agenda.
Yes.
And I think I've always sort of instinctively followed things in my life.
Right.
Without actually knowing what the end result is. And I think there is something to be said for a bit of naivety as well, because I think it makes you feel invincible, oddly.
Yes.
So a lot of the time, I look back and I think, my goodness gracious me, what on earth was I thinking? And probably in retrospect, with all more information, would never have done it. But I'm glad I did act in that time, because sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, you do feel indestructible and you just sort of plow through in a way that if you had more information, you probably wouldn't do.
So true. No, I love that perspective. In terms of landscape of luxury, this is constantly evolving. Do you have any personal subjects that you've really loved to get involved in, or anything that's had quite a high sort of impact?
There's so many things that I've thoroughly enjoyed doing and have led me somewhere else. At the moment, I've just started working at the British Museum with Nicholas Cullinan, who's a great friend of the new director. And I find him very, very exciting to work with, as I think he's got a real sense of modern leadership, because he enables you to sort of explore and create change with him. So I'm excited to have this consulting role with him to see how we can change the landscape. And for me, culture, the intersection where culture meets fashion, meets arts, meets life, is where I've sort of now find myself.
Right.
And is a unique space for me, I think, that's a progression from where I started, but still feels quite natural and feeds into Cabana and everything else that I'm doing.
Yes, so linking everything sort of together. If you were to sort of look back, and you mentioned sort of your advice at the beginning, but if you were giving advice to your younger self or someone starting out on their career, what would be the key things that you would say to them?
I was actually thinking about this week, because I don't think you ever stop learning. And I don't ever really stop giving myself advice, whether I be talking to myself at 15, 18, 25, 34. I don't think you ever stop learning. And I think the most important thing for me is to give yourself permission to make mistakes, because I'm still making mistakes. I did something this week and I actually sort of started beating myself up in my head about it, because I wish I'd handled it slightly differently. But then you learn from that.
Right.
So I think, I was definitely brought up to I was always trying to be perfect. And what is that? And people's idea of perfection is so different. Mm-hmm. And there's a wonderful space in your life, which I think when everyone becomes extraordinarily productive and their most brilliant sense of self is when they enable themselves to not be perfect, yes, and to let other people around you give that permission. And actually, when I make mistakes, which I do constantly, or mistakes in inverted commas, what is a mistake, or something I might have done differently, it gives me lots of different perspectives. It gives me perspectives for kindness and awareness with other people, because one of my not so great traits, I'm very impatient. I expect everyone to kind of learn at high altitude and to be fluent in the language of whatever I'm saying, because I'm sort of spinning top and doing things a million miles an hour. And actually, when you are in a position where you work in a way and you think, gosh, I would have done that differently, you have a perspective for everyone else around you. So I think we've all just sort of got to really understand that you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And the world is evolving and changing, and we all collectively would have made different decisions. But actually, the greatest gift of life is experience.
Yes.
And the only if you put yourself, the only reason I've particularly got to a position where I am professionally is because I've said yes.
Right.
I never really thought I knew what I was doing at many points in my life, and I've actually been petrified. I became a stylist and a fashion director because my boss was ill and couldn't go to a fashion shoot, and my deputy editor at the time said, Sophie's kind of good with people, should we just ask her if she'll go?
Oh, wow.
And I was apt, because I was a shopping editor at the time. I was doing very different things, and I was interested in writing in the beginning. And everything about my soul wanted to say, no, I didn't want to go on this shoot. I didn't want to do this thing. But I said yes, because I thought, you know what? And I remember this exact thought process. I said, look, I'll say yes, and if it blows up in my face and I get fired, well, at least I've tried, and I'll go and become a lawyer or something. And I remember I went on this shoot, and it was a lady, Elizabeth Anson, who was the Queen's party planner at the time. And she hadn't slept at all the night before. She was very nervous about the shoot, because the wonderful thing about Tatler is we were shooting, real people. We weren't shooting models and all that sort of stuff. Right. It was all about women with men with jobs and lives who had their own sense of insecurities. And I went, and she was very nervous. Anyway, we turned the whole day around and ended up dressing up in vintage Balenciaga and blowing up balloons and got this phenomenal image. And I remember a very particular feeling, that sort of high when you've done something that meant something to someone. And I thought that day that could have been awful for her and for me, but, less me in this situation, more for her. And it was actually a great day. So she had a great day, about a day she was dreading. Yes. And that, for me, became addictive and important. And for me, it's always been the emotionality of fashion, how clothes make you feel. I don't sort of, get out of bed dreaming of Prada look 4. I dream about how clothes make me feel, and an armour, and what I'm trying to say. And I think they're very, very important. And I think they're such a strong source of power for women and for men. And I think it's a sign of respect for yourself and a sign of respect for people you're meeting. And I've used psychology throughout my career, really. And I think emotional intelligence and understanding others and understanding people and caring about people and why they do things is at the very crux of everything that we all do on a day-to-day basis.
Amazing. Wow, so much there. Saying yes to things, going, I guess, beyond your comfort zone, but then actually almost like remembering that emotional feeling that you felt when you did it. And I guess, as you said, getting addicted to that just means you're pushing forwards always.
And I think it's also, my North Star, I know why I'm doing things.
Right.
It's very clear to me. Like if someone asks me it's always been very clear to me why, the why,
yes.
not the what. I mean,
yes.
my why could display itself in so many different fields. So I definitely, I'm fascinated by people and how they communicate and why we make decisions, and giving people a platform to feel and be extraordinary. And that underwrites everything, I think.
No, completely. What would you say has been your proudest moment? Was it days like that, as you described earlier? What would you be like looking back and be like super proud at that moment?
I think, very proud when I've completed things that I actually really fundamentally didn't want to do.
Okay.
And there have been definite highs. I remember actually, I was asked to style a cover for Tatler, and I'd never done anything. I'd never actually styled a shoot before, I don't think, and it ended up being the best-selling cover, and it was great. And I remember my editor at the time, wonderful woman, Kate Reardon. She called me into her office and she said, it's brilliant. And I was quite sort of self-deprecating, and she just looked me in the eye and she said, Sophie, there are very few moments in life that you actually get to celebrate. Own them, and this is your moment. Just own it. And I learned a lot from Kate, actually, and from many people I've worked with. I've been very privileged to have been given extraordinary advice and been helped pastorally as well. And I try to do that now with members of my team,
yes.
Anyone I work with, because I think, yes, it's work, but it's also life.
Yes. I love that. Own the moment, celebrate, and celebrate those small wins along the way. I think that's amazing advice. And you mentioned, so you had obviously people around you at work giving you that advice. You're now giving that advice to other people. But day to day now, like, what keeps you going? Do you have a mentor? Is there something you read that keeps you driven? What keeps you enthused with what you're doing every day?
I think the question also people ask me is mentors and inspirations,
yeah.
and that sort of thing. And I'm not inspired by people I haven't met or situations I haven't been in. So I think, celebrities and incredible people have done wonderful things, but if I haven't met them, I don't feel there's a different dynamic for me. So the things that excite me daily are the people around me.
Right.
So I've been very, very lucky. I've had incredible editors and strong, very brilliant women in my life who I've turned to at different times, who have given me incredible advice. But I try to have as many different conversations with as many different people every single day, because I think you learn, what you learn and what you see does come from quite extraordinary places sometimes. And I think a good perspective is a wide perspective.
Yes.
Because actually a lot of the time we're in echo, I exist in an echo chamber, you do too, we all do. And we're used to having conversations with the same sorts of people about the same sort of things, and we probably have a sort of the same sort of opinion within within a 45-degree angle or something.
Yes.
But I think I like challenging people. A lot of my friends are very challenging, and I surround myself by people that I do find quite exciting and almost intimidating in a way. Like I think I really do like to learn, and I like to learn from my immediate world and grow. And I think that for me, that's a sort of neighborhood, community thing rather than a sort of, bigger picture prospect.
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. And yeah, I think the people who you do surround yourself is so important, because, as they say, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself
exactly.
with. So it's so important to pick that wisely as well. What's your sort of now your day-to-day routine? Do you have like a typical day? Do you have a typical week? Because it must be working on so many different projects. How does that all fit together?
It's sort of happy chaos, I'm
Right.
afraid. I'm not a very routine person, and I thrive off that, oddly. And I'm much better if I'm doing lots of things, because if I'm doing one thing, I tend to obsess about it and overthink it and make it into something it doesn't need to be. And a lot of the work I do is events based, so there can be late nights, there can be travel. So I sort of know I wouldn't be able to give you a slight blueprint.
Right.
And I often work quite late at night sometimes, and when I'm particularly working with New York, there's calls that it's time difference, and it's very, very, very unroutined, actually.
How do you get in your sort of downtime to re-energize? Is it quite difficult, especially when you've got, working in different time zones, events, etc.?
No, I don't find it difficult, actually.
Right.
I'm a very good sleeper, and I do sort of jump in and out of situations relatively easily.
Right.
So if I'm, whether it's, I try to, I'll listen to podcasts I'm walking around, or watch something, or see someone, or go to a museum or an exhibition. But I do now find myself able to be very present and not to take things with me, perhaps in a way I did when I was younger.
Right.
But I think perhaps maybe that's an experience thing, that's something you learn, because I think you become much more engaged with your own sense of superpower the older you are, because you've done it, not because you're suddenly very clever, but because you've known, I sort of know where my wasted energy and where that ends up. And that's the definition of madness, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yes.
So I've had those entrapments where I've felt very anxious and very tortured and very worried about, I'm not saying, life's hearts and flowers and things, but I think I do know how we all have a finite amount of energy and resources, and the one thing I do now, which is super helpful, is I'm very careful about who I spend my time with and the people I surround myself by, and making sure that they're energy generators and I'm giving them energy back, and then you end up having this very sort of positive force field around you, like sort of Glinda in Wicked, when she's in that bubble.
Yes, that's a great way of explaining it, actually.
I always feel that I'm sort of, that's that bubble around me, and
right.
you can get your wand out and sort of get rid of the bubble if you want, but your energy field in your space is a privilege.
Right. Absolutely.
And it can sound a bit sort of hard work in the beginning and sounds like you're sort of eliminating things, but you're not. You're actually, it's good old fashioned like self-preservation, really. And then it's about where you find you are most productive.
Right.
And I think everyone we all get the lives that we want. I think that when anyone asks me lots of questions about life and would you have done X or Y, or none of us are winning here. We've got the life that we want because of the decisions that we've made.
Yes.
And I think the older you get and the more experience you have and the things that you go through, you know where your force of power operates best from and what you need. It's sort of like, it's like being an athlete. It's like,
right.
If you want to be the best athlete, you've got to train. That's why if you listen to great leaders, most of them meditate.
Yes.
All this sort of stuff. It's like your emotional hygiene is as important as physical hygiene. And the work takes place every day, on your brain, on your body. And I think once you've sort of got this formula, if you can stick to it, then it's unbelievable what you can achieve. But it is just it's a life's work.
Yeah.
Always.
Amazing. Wow, there's so many pearls of wisdom there that through your experience, for sure, we can take away. A fun question that we like to ask all of our guests. 3 things that we can always find at your desk or in your handbag as part of your mini survival kit. What would they be? I
always have lip balm.
Yes.
I don't know why, because I always think if, you shove it on and you look slightly more glossy than you did before. I've got this Laneige one that I love.
Nice.
And I'm sort of terrible, like Philistine. I no matter how much I try to have an electronic diary, I'm obsessed with writing notes. So I have a fountain pen that I love that reminds me of sort of calligraphy lessons at school. And chewing gum as well.
Yes.
Sorry, it's very boring. But
no, I think they're all essentials. Do you really feel like when you, rather than typing things out, when you're writing it feels different and you come up with better, like, do you like that way?
Yes, I think it's maybe the way I was trained as well, because when at the Evening Standard and at Condé Nast, it was I edited off printouts.
Right.
So now it's odd. I have to physically see something and look at it and write it.
Right.
And it's even when I'm, looking at outfits and things, I need to see an image back at me. It's very strange. So the sort of art of writing something down, and I like crossing it out. I like the physicality of it.
It's very satisfying.
And I keep trying, and I, for love nor money, I can't. No matter what I put on my diary, I could literally write anything on that diary, and I wouldn't see it on my phone. Whereas if I write everything down every day, and also I sort of feel you always feel sort of busy if you're writing notes furiously the whole time.
Do you ever get paranoid about losing your diary? I mean, I used to be paper. I used to get so scared about losing it. So
No, I think I have actually lost it in the past, but, it's fine. And then you can just sort of blame the fact you've lost your diary if you're not
that's a
anywhere.
very good point.
It's like I don't wear a watch because it's better that everyone thinks I don't know the time rather than just being late.
It. And where can we find you when you're sort of off duty? What are your favourite spots in London or perhaps more globally?
In London, I mean, at the moment I'm spending a bit of time in the British Museum when I'm just sort of, it's interesting because I think when you work within structures or within places, you forget to see things from an outside perspective. So I try to go and see the world that we're operating in quieter moments so you can appreciate it how others see things.
Yes.
So I enjoy doing that. But I spent, at the moment I'm traveling a bit. I've been in New York and things like that. So no, it's been good.
Nice. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for such an inspiring talk. There's so much there to take away. Where can our listeners find you? Where can we follow you? And do you have what the kind of latest things coming up for you?
The moment I'm working a lot with, I'm planning this big ball with the British Museum that's taking place next year. And then with Tiger's Eye, we've got lots of events coming up, and then Cabana as well. So there'll be lots of but you'll sort of be bored of me, I think, probably.
And your Instagram?
Instagram, exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we'll see you again in Harley Street. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much.